Hey, sup, pups? Welcome to the show. I'm Powerhead Greg. I do game streaming. I do a show called the Power Up Podcast, and recently trying to start a new show called Redacted and Classified Knowledge. Uh, I like to call it rack because who doesn't like a nice rack? I'm smooth like that. I always try to do what are those called? Synonyms, right? Where it's like,
Synonyms.
okay. I thought it was something else, but
Wordplay.
wordplay. There you go. An even better, better word to use. But this series is more specifically honing in on just finding out those cool conspiracy stories or interesting myths throughout the culture around the world and stuff like that. Friend and I did episode 1 talking about David Grusch, if I'm pronouncing it,
Yeah.
Grusch. Talking about that, we watched at least I'm not sure if it was the full episode or not, but we did watch a good chunk. I personally had some red flags about it because I was like, I don't know. But then, as you guys can see, the guest tonight is Reuben Langdon, motion capture for Dante from the Devil May Cry series, also the voice and a bunch of other stuff. Fun guy. He was on the show on the Power Up podcast, and he talked about his interest in UFOs, aliens, and whatnot. And when I saw David appear as the whistleblower, I was like, I want to hear Ruben's take on this because I'm sure it's going to be amazing. And I did see a little bit of you tweeting that. But Ruben, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me back on again. Glad to be here.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So I just, like I said, I kind of want to get your whole take on it too. We were talking behind the scenes on how there appears to be a full-length interview. I think
Yeah.
I felt I watched a 30-minute one, but if there's one that's even longer than that, I'm not exactly sure.
It's about 45 minutes, I
Okay,
think.
that
So you probably saw, there's different versions of it out
okay.
there, and with like
hmm
commercial breaks and stuff, it might be
hmm
closer to 30 minutes.
And this was happening, let's see. I mean, this wasn't that too long ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, maybe even three that he brought
Two and a half
he
weeks ago, yeah. So the bigger question is the biggest,
Mhm,
where we should probably start the conversation is yes, David Grusch came out. The
mhm,
News Nation has been covering him, sort of has the exclusive, but a lot of other news agencies and newspapers are picking up on the story. Um, but what is auspicious is almost about a week later, so about a week and a half ago. Dr. Stephen Greer did a press conference at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C., and had, I believe, 6 whistleblowers that actually, unlike David Grusch, actually had seen craft, actually had, military,
hmm,
there are different variances of military personnel, some in the public sector, but contractors working for military contractors. And they had all had firsthand witness testimony. And what was so strange is you had that event, National Press Club, super accessible to the press. The whole event was for the press in a sense, and the mainstream media is silent on the whole event. In fact, I had a friend live streaming on Instagram the event, and the feed got cut in real time, and she got a strike on her account for spreading disinformation or whatever. So that is, I think, if we can just set the stage there,
mhm.
that event happened. That event was profound. Dr. Stephen Greer, back in 2001, did the infamous Disclosure Project, which I think is available on YouTube in its entirety, a couple hours press conference, and he had whistleblowers from NASA and others come out. People from the military and whatnot come out about sort of the same topic. This has been a cover up. Humanity's being lied to. And then a few months later, 9/11 happened. But even at that time, we didn't have the media accessibility that we have now through social media, through podcasts, and through the technology that we have now. So the I haven't personally vetted Grusch. I haven't personally vetted any of the Greer witnesses, but Greer usually over the years he has a handful of these whistleblowers that have come to him, and he's done the vetting process. Now he says he's done the vetting process for these new guys that he's put up on the stage, but the different thing about Greer is it's not like one guy. He's got hundreds of whistleblowers that have come out. And then also, as we mentioned last time I was on the show back in 2013, I produced the Citizen Hearing on Disclosure, which was I co-produced the Citizen Hearing on Disclosure with over 40 witnesses, ex-military government agency folks, and many well-known researchers to testify in front of 6 former members of Congress to the fact that we're that mock congressional hearing and these witnesses were testifying to the fact that we're being engaged by an extraterrestrial presence. So again, more of the same kind of news, the same kind of stuff that we've been hearing. At the time, mainstream media again was sort of silent on our event, other than trying to poke holes in it and make fun of it. But you're talking about heads of we had Captain Robert Salas, who was the head of the Maelstrom or the nuclear SAC base in shoot, I forget my geography now, but Montana, I think. So you had guys that were protecting and in charge of our nuclear arsenal, and so they're not just fly by night Yahoo cowboy guys. And even then, and now a lot of people are referencing that as sort of official stuff. But then the mainstream media was silent on the event, silent on the topic, or ridiculing the topic and making fun of it. And here we are now, 10 years later, just over 10 years, actually almost to the day. And we're getting, testimony like Grusch's, and the mainstream media doing their rounds about it. So the bigger question is, why is the media covering Grusch, and why is the media silent on Greer's, his event he did just under 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, and why has the Citizen Hearing on Disclosure, a 5-day mock congressional hearing with 6 former members of Congress, and as well as established whistleblowers, why has that event been still continued to be censored and silenced? If you go to the YouTube channel, there's some views, but it's clearly shadow banned. It has. I put the whole thing out for free on YouTube about a year ago, and other than the initial views that it had when we first released it, because my buddy and partner Jeremy Corbell has also been promoting it and we were trying to get the word out when we first released it last year. So we got like about 10,000 views per video kind of, but that number has not gone up at all in an entire year. So clearly shadow banned by YouTube, and not, the algorithms and whatnot are not spreading the information in the way the algorithms work in other things. If you're trying to sell something, or if you're talking about other topics that YouTube has no problem sharing and algorithming other people and getting the information out, then that happens. But in my case with Citizen Hearing, it's been sort of a dead subject, and going to deaf ears basically. So anyways, that sort of sets the stage a little bit, and maybe you might want to go a little bit deeper into the Grusch thing, but I'm glad to talk about Grusch and my sort of viewpoint on that. But I just setting the stage because this is a much bigger topic, subject. There's a lot of chess pieces moving around that's way bigger than just Grusch and what we're hearing in the mainstream media.
No, that's fantastic. And that's exactly why I reached out to you again, because I am such a noob at this that so I'm glad that you established it, because the first time we talked, I mean, you're going hardcore in on this. You've been studying this forever. Me, I'm just like, well, that's interesting. I have some ideas, but I was like, wait, Reuben, he'll have some good information and stuff like that. Uh-oh.
Oh, we lost something. Look at that. It decided
my other camera. What's going? Oh, now it's back to that. What the hell is going on here? Okay, the CIA is officially hacking our feed here.
Oh no. Don't worry.
No.
We're still on Rumble, so we're good. Are you
I think it's let me just check my settings. Are you hearing me okay?
you're cutting in and out a little bit, so
Interesting.
I'm wondering if
Okay.
it's switched to a camera that has a built-in mic.
Oh, okay. Let me just quickly. Okay, there's that. That's a better picture. That's sort of what I was looking for. I'm a little elongated, it looks like, but let me try.
Yeah, I'm limited on my end because I can either
Yeah,
zoom it in like we
no.
were at before, or put it back on that end.
Oh, I see what happened. It switched over. Let me go to. Ooh, what happened here? Okay, so that's audio. Mic. Okay, here we go. Let me reset. Something popped out of my AirPods. Mac built.
Okay, let's try that.
Oh, there
Is
you
that
go.
in-
Yeah, you sound better that way.
Okay, that's so weird. And my regular mic got discombobulated. AirPods. Okay, that's audio. Let's do. Anyway, sorry for technical details. As long as you can still hear me.
Yeah, I can still.
That's the key
You
thing.
sound good when you switch back over. Yeah, my apologies too, because the one that you used before, called I use Melon, it got bought up. I can't talk. Bought out by Streamlabs. So I don't know if that has anything to do with that, but they switched a while ago. So I would assume, and it's like pretty much the same setup. It's just makes me want to go to StreamYards, but I don't feel like to. But all right, sorry about that, folks. But I think we're good.
As long as this working, it doesn't look like it's recognizing my other mic here. But if you can hear me, okay, then
You actually sound better on this one. I think.
Okay, great.
So
yeah, we'll just continue on this.
Well, we got Christopher in the chat. He's saying, "Are you guys worried at all about the power of the deep black projects?" And
worried about the okay. Well, I guess.
A believer in Greer and Grusch. We'll get to that question later.
Yeah,
but
it's I mean the black projects have been going on since the beginning of the UFO phenomenon. Since for the U.S. the 1940s. So I'm not too worried, that anything more than what we've already experienced. I wouldn't worry about any kind of using the technology other than how it's already been used, for weaponization, giving money to or giving technology to military contractors and that type of thing for them to develop more war weapons. So I wouldn't worry if that's, we can circle back to that question, go in more depth. We can set the stage a little bit better, perhaps.
So when David came out and started talking about yes, I've gotten information and stuff, to me, one of the things, and this may have been just established longer in the interview that's no longer up on YouTube, at least, it was a lot of secondhand notes sort of thing, as opposed to him not actually seeing it. And to me, I feel nowadays that's a big component of, well, we want to know if you actually saw it and not suppose like getting secondhand information, sort of thing.
Which is curious. Why would the news run with the secondhand information guy when Greer's got 6 guys on the National Press Club making a big announcement literally a week later? So some of the other red flags that I noticed was, in 2017, I don't know if you're familiar with the TTSA and the To the Stars Academy with Tom DeLonge, the rock star from Blink-182, and his announcement of the To the Stars Academy with, former CIA guy Jim Semivan, former, not former, but still present, Hal Puthoff. He's like a major scientist and looking into reverse engineering, exotic technologies. You had Lou Elizondo, who claimed to work for the ATIP program, which is now there's a lot of controversy around him and his claims around that particular program, and even the name, and just there's a lot of fishiness that we just found out through some new FOIA requests that there's been like 2 different resignation letters. One that he said he left the Pentagon or the programs that he was involved in, but there still there's like a lot of fishiness around there. So that group, also Chris Mellon, who's used to work for, I believe, the Clinton administration in some sort of I forget his exact positions, but he's coming from a very rich family, the Mellon family, known banking family. So with that list of suspects, we also sort of simultaneously got the release with Leslie Kean, and she's a brilliant reporter, actually, who has been on the subject, has written a lot of books on the subject. But we got her in. At that time, she broke sort of the New York Times broke the story in 2017 of the secret ATIP program, which she was interviewing Lou and others, and that was the $22 million funded by 3 former members or 3 members of Congress. I think Harry Reid was the only one left alive, but so they were sort of investigating and looking into the subject. And then what we started to get is we started to get disclosures. We started to get in the news. Tucker Carlson had these guys on. Different news agencies were sort of covering it and talking about it. And we got the idea that there was a group within the government studying these UAPs, right? Unidentified aerial phenomenon, which is the word that they're trying to, instead of UFO, they're trying to steer everybody into that direction, which it just creates more confusion. Just like, Grusch was using NIH, or NHI, or what, non-human intelligences, instead of just saying freaking aliens. Come on, dude.
Yeah.
Just why are we playing word games here? The program now, we have Arrow that is supposedly at Congress studying this, and we had a couple of hearings made public recently, not hearings made public, but public hearings with Kilpatrick talking about the subject. NASA was doing a thing. So there's a lot of NASA did a press conference a couple weeks ago as well. There's a lot of talk in the town, so to say, about this subject in DC and in these within the news agencies. And so we have to kind of say, what's going on here? Why are we having this subject all of a sudden? Why are we talking about this subject all of a sudden when it's an ongoing, even during the Grusch interview? And he's not wrong. He said, he accurately pointed out that that intelligence have been sitting on this for 80 to 90 years. And this information has been withheld from the public for at least that long, and maybe longer. So that's, again, setting the stage. I don't know which direction you want to go down. We can sort of stay on the Grusch thing since you saw that, and if you have specific questions around that.
Yeah, we can stay on the Grusch area, just because. Yeah, there was a couple of red flags, like you said. Like to me, a lot of secondhand information, where nowadays. Just reiterating what I said earlier, like people want to see more, like, yeah, I actually saw it and this and that. One thing that I know that pointed out that caught me interesting, does this happen? Like, it always seems that whenever like these type of news stories come out, it's always confined in the US sort of thing. Like it's the
Right.
US government that's talking about it. And again, I'm totally noobish to when it comes to this. During your studies, like, do you hear this like all over the world as well? Because every
Yeah.
time, like when you see it on news, it always seems to go back to specifically the U.S. government. Can you like elaborate a little bit more
Yeah, I
on
mean,
like?
it's a worldwide phenomenon. Russia has files on it. China has files on it. Many governments around the world have. Argentina, during the citizen hearing on disclosure, we did a full day devoted to foreign events and sort of looking at documents from Argentina, from Brazil to a lot of South American countries at that time, because they were more open with their reporting on the subject, and their military wasn't was also sort of inquiring and trying to figure things out. But what we also see, like with the Virginia case in Brazil in the 1990s, is we see a U.S. We see the U.S. working in conjunction with the Brazilian military to take the crash craft, and the beings into custody. So the U.S. definitely has probably the most well equipped and most dominating force on this subject. So when crashed craft or other types of phenomenon happen in different parts of the world, the U.S. usually has their fingers in it. I don't know about Russia. I don't know how deep U.S. fingers are in Russian crashes on the Russian side, and same with Chinese. I think the Russians and the Chinese have been pretty good about keeping their investigations and their phenomenon research contained within those countries. And there has been great researchers coming from those countries sharing some of that information, but you're not going to see that stuff on the mainstream news, usually on their news or our news. So, why does it seem as it's only happening in the States is because we live in the States. We get the news coming from the States, and usually any news that comes through the U.S. news pipeline is going to go internationally, because they're owned and operated by the international news media, that runs the media of the world, that's bought and paid and controlled by the usual suspects.
So aside from the U.S. In your studies and kind of like all the stuff that you've done, what other parts of the world do you see have like the most crashings and sightings that happened? Is there like
It's worldwide.
It's just worldwide? Oh, okay.
It's Europe. It's everywhere. There's famous cases in Belgium. There's cases in the UK. There's cases in France. There's cases in Japan. There's cases in China. There's cases in Russia. There's cases in, like as I was saying, South America, Central America.
Okay.
It is a worldwide phenomenon, and that it's just
Okay.
It's everywhere you look. There's cases.
Okay, I didn't know if like there's like more like if there's like a specific number to where like this area parts of the world has more higher cases than this part of the area.
It would be great to have some sort of uniform accounting system for these cases, but in the U.S. we have what's it called, the MUFON, which is the mutual. I forgot what the acronym stands for, but it's sort of a group that there's a lot of volunteers, and there's specific protocols set up. So if a sighting is reported, then the volunteer would then take a statement, so to say. And then there's the national reporting, there's another national sort of reporting agency that you can report to. And so there's different agencies, but they're not really talking to each other that much. Throughout France, there's the Invisible College, which is a group of scientists that are sort of secretly getting together to talk about different cases and different I think it's not just limited to France, but I think that's the origins are France, and many European scientists come together and talk about some of their findings in different cases, and they're called to sightings and doing research in that sense. So there's a lot of different groups doing different research, and unfortunately, it's not all databased into one central group that we can look at. I'm sure our military has probably a pretty good, or our military, I should say, some of these black budgets that were just mentioned, black budget programs, what's it called, USAPs, unidentified special access programs. They probably have pretty good data on a lot of the actual physical interactions that happen around the planet, I would assume.
So with the different crashes that happen all around the world, are there like, is kind of like the signs of like when a crash happens, or like contact or just visibility that's shown up, are they similar signs throughout the entire world, or is it like, are there certain unique ones that only happen like on the east side of the world as opposed to the west side of the world, if that makes sense? Like I'm thinking of like,
Right, follow your question.
oh, okay.
It sounded like the last question, so just maybe clarify.
Oh, no, yeah, absolutely. I guess it's more of the, like, say, so you see like crop circles, or like cow like mutilations, or like experimentations of something like that. I guess like, does that sort of stuff also happen worldwide all over the place, or is there like unique signs like specifically in like the US
So
as opposed,
yeah,
like
no,
that's
again, the phenomenon is so
okay.
random and so out there, and it happens. I think there's mutilations all over the world.
Mhm.
There's the phenomenon varies in its in the types of craft and the sizes and the color spectrums and the numbers. That is, it's all very random and happens all over the world, and
Okay.
I don't think there's any type of classification, and this type of event happens over here, this type of event over here. No, it's very random.
Okay, cool. Well, I actually have the interview of David up. So maybe like if we watch that a little bit, and then if like, if there, well, I guess we could either do that, or if you have other like signs that during the interview that you were like, whoa, hold up, that doesn't make sense, like sort of thing.
Well, I think David Grusch is who he says he is. I think
Mhm.
he's been in those positions. I'm not trying to deny what he's saying. His everything he said seemed accurate information, as far as, he mentioned China, he mentioned the US, he mentioned the reason it's been a secret is to keep the military sort of, so they have these different militaries of the world have special edges, and as far as reverse engineering the technology. The sort of beef I have is towards the end of the interview, he started going into the idea that they're malevolent in their intentions. And what he's basing that off of is, and he doesn't go into detail because he says it's classified and all that. And what he's talking about is the people do get sick when they're around this phenomenon. Not all of it, but some, especially the physicalized craft that come into our dimension, they're highly radiated. And during the citizen hearing, John Burroughs, he was one of the airmen during the Bentwaters case. And he has been in and out of the VA having issues with his heart. And the big problem at that time, and if you go back and watch the citizen hearing, he was trying to get some sort of medical, as a patron and as a veteran, he was denied any type of medical access, leave, or even a pension. Basically, the records show that he wasn't even in the military because it was all classified, his whole case. Even though he had check stubs to show he was getting, he was a military pay, he was getting paid by the military. So it was really upsetting that here you had this this guy who committed himself to serve our country, and it was just, you know, not being taken care of at all. And clearly his heart murmur issues, as with Sergeant Peniston, were all they both you know, came into close contact with the craft and had physical issues long term, because from that began during their interaction with the craft. So what these craft do is they release a specific type of radiation, and that radiation is classified, and the military knows about it. The military will not talk about it, and even Grusch was beating around the bush around that subject. He was not going into that. And luckily, during the citizens training, we had a doctor that knew about this type of radiation, had worked with it, and sort of gave Burroughs a call, or called him out during the citizen hearing and said, "Hey, I think I know what's going on. I think we might be able to help you." So I think he had left. I don't know if he was still in the military or not, but basically because this type of radiation and how to treat it is all classified. So when this stuff happens in the public sector and you have people getting exposed, and there is treatments available, but the military is not sharing any of that. So it's, again, a crime against humanity, a crime against John Burroughs for you know, being a serviceman, and this is sort of a lot of the issues we have around this issue being a secret, is we have you know, soldiers and servicemen that aren't getting the treatment that they need. Luckily, this gentleman stood up, and he did do a second surgery, and he's doing fine now, and was able to, you know, he was in and out of hearts. He had several open heart surgeries. So what Grusch is, I believe, what he's alluding to is many people working on these projects, many people trying to look at the technology and reverse engineer it. They're exposed to radiations and they die, and there have been deaths. So you know, and there probably has been some engagements by the military, probably hostile, I would assume, to try to take out or eradicate these craft. So of course, out of, you know, self-defense, I would imagine they would, you know, if anybody was attacking me, I would, you know, try to either elude, evade, or and if I was backed into a corner, I would, you know, have to fight back. So, you know, he's very wishy-washy around that, but he definitely gets that in. And News Nation, you know, the guy doing the interview says, "I'm very scared. You mean there are murders? They're murdering people?" And he's wishy-washy with his words, because there hasn't been any murders. There have been deaths and accidents, and perhaps our military groups have been have had attacks in self-defense. It's an assumption. I don't have any hard data to prove that, but neither does Grusch. Grusch is not showing any data that's going on. And I do know about the classified radiation, and he, you know, and he sort of was talking in code around that subject. So that's where sort of my beef with some of the stuff that he's saying. And going back to the Leslie Kean ATIP 2017 New York Times sort of disclosure agenda, because it is an agenda that's being put onto the people. When you look at the timing of these things, there is a clear agenda to create a negative, fear-based narrative around the subject matter. You know, he sort of ends on that note, and you can see how the media is portraying the Grusch and the subject in general, with Leslie Kean's reporting and others, is they always end it with, "We need more research, we need more funding, we need, you know, more military contracts to further enlarge the military-industrial complex, which has been keeping this away from the public and secret for so many years and keeping this technology at bay, which Grusch did call out. I give him credit. He did call that out. But he sort of ends with, we need more of the same. We need lots of funding and military. Let's beef up the military even more so we can really figure out what's going on here.
Always funding, right? Yeah. Always funding.
Totally.
So very interesting. So definitely interested on you bringing up that special type of radiation from the crafts. With the crafts and with you researching and doing just due diligence stuff and even posting stuff as well, are there actual, like, I mean, they might be cadavers or corpses of the alien entities out there, or is it, or do they give off the same type of radiation as well? Since I'm assuming they would need to handle that sort of stuff.
Yeah, in the Virginia case, James Fox did a great documentary on the Virginia Brazil case. I forgot the title, but it came out a few months ago. He's a good filmmaker, a good researcher. And, in his documentary, the soldier that actually carried the bean, they found there was, I think 1 or 2 beans that got out into the city. Many people saw them, and these ladies, 3 of them still alive, and James got their testimony, described the one being and how they saw it, and then the one military guy actually scooped it up, carried it to the hospital, and then shortly after got very sick, and he eventually died. So there was, some sort of, whether it was radiation or something, it could have been biological, that was coming from the being that killed the soldier. And then his, I think, sister or girlfriend, perhaps maybe mother and girlfriend, were also interviewed by James, and they were talking about it. And other people were exposed in the hospital, but I don't think anybody had any major long-term effects like this one soldier who did end up dying.
Wow.
Man, so that happens.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy. That's the first. I'm gonna like email you afterwards and be like, give me all like the videos and stuff, because I need to catch up on this.
Well,
this is so crazy.
Just go watch James's documentary on the Virginia case. Really good, really well done. There's tons of documentaries. Again, this is not new stuff. I know it may be new for a lot of people, but we've been, the problem is this whole subject has been sort of demonized or laughed at or ridiculed, and people over the years have just, based on what our society tells us through the news media and stuff, have just laughed it off as it's not real. Now we're finding out, now for whatever reason, people are deciding to listen and pay attention. But we're getting these disclosures. There's been documentaries on this stuff from way back, the Roswell crash, right? How many TV shows are there about the Roswell crash? And then yet still people are like, maybe there's something to it. I don't know. Come on, people. We've had how many seasons of Ancient Aliens by now?
Oh yeah. Are the aliens exactly like what you kind of think of, your grays with the almond-shaped eyes, or there's many versions of it?
There's infinite species, infinite types. If you can imagine it exists. Think of Star Wars, the cantina. There you go.
Okay. Oh wow. Nice.
Yeah. And beyond. And they're not all, most of the ones I interact with are not physical. So they're quasi-physical, they're light beings, they're not in a body, so to say. So we need to look at intelligence, this new buzzword that they're using, the NHI, non-human intelligences, right? I guess we could go into that direction because, when we think of aliens, when we say that term or the word, we're so used to the Star Wars and the Star Trek type beings. And those of course exist, but it's much more. And this is again some of the good stuff that David Grusch was accurately reporting and talking about, was it's not limited to our terrestrial reality, our sort of 3D world that we're used to understanding. So he goes into quantum worlds and multi dimensions and these types of concepts and ideas that scientists have been doing great research and experiments and showing that we do live in a multi-dimensional reality. So and that's why my show is called Interview with Ed, Extra Dimensionals, as opposed to ET, because it is, this non-human intelligence is very broad in its spectrum, and it comes in many forms and fashions. And to limit it to just a physicalized Star Wars type universe would be not doing it full justice, for sure.
Oh yeah. Scripture wise, the Bible talks about like going beyond like 10 dimensions too. So absolutely, there's these dimensions out. But I guess that would actually tie into something else I would want to talk about too. That you even retweeted or shared on your Twitter is that video of the bird floating in midair. And I actually have that pulled up here. So I'd like to share that and get your thoughts on that too, because that was interesting as well. That's
a whole nother subject, but definitely sort of entangled with what we're talking about here.
Yeah. I'm just saying that because we're 40 minutes in, so so I don't want to keep you if you have other stuff to do, but definitely want to get your thoughts on this too. So I've got for the folks at home, got the video right here. So bird is spotted not moving in the sky.
That's freaking weird, man. Isn't it? Yeah, there's someone else taking a picture.
That is.
It's just so weird because
I was confused at first at what it was, but then I kind of saw like the wings and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't see anything like.
I'm curious to see, how long it was like that, or what happened afterwards. We don't have enough information.
Yeah, I'm kind of.
Drop all this, wouldn't that be freaky?
Okay, well, let's go before it just drops on us.
Let's go before this drops on us. Yeah, I'm kind of just whoop. Yeah. So, like, what are your thoughts on that sort of thing? Because when I saw something like that, it kind of reminded me. If we base it off the scripture, you have your physical body, and then you've got your soul, and then you've got the spirit. And the scripture talks about going to sleep a lot of times, and and going to sleep may not necessarily mean like everything is dead. It could just be your body that's asleep, but your soul is still active and stuff like that. But I'm interested, kind of like what you thought on that, because one of the things that kind of bothered me with that video is you could actually see it with the wipers. I feel like it going across kind of should have made a blurry motion, like on the pigeon a little bit. It looked a little too clean to me, but that's me like kind of curious about if it was like edited sort of thing. But I'm curious on like what you think on that sort of phenomenon.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but scripture's talking about this time we're in right now, that we're in this great shift that's happening to humanity, and some term of the apocalypse, and through my interactions with and this will sound a bit high strange and crazy and weird and all that stuff.
Oh, good.
But based on what we know now, what David Grusch and the mainstream media is telling us, ETs are real, and based on my interactions with them, they have been telling a story for the past 10 years in my series about humanity going through this great shift in consciousness. Very similar in parallel with scripture and how this is happening. And we're seeing it. Obviously, we're seeing it through COVID. We're seeing it through, many are calling it the Great Awakening. There's even a movie my buddy Mickey Wells just put out a couple weeks ago. Hopefully you've seen it, called The Great Awakening. Have you seen it? Pandemic Part 3.
I haven't. I'll have to check it out for sure.
Definitely check that out. Lots of scripture talked about in that
Cool.
in that documentary.
You said the
And
Great. Sorry to interrupt. The Great
The
Awakening.
Great Awakening, Plandemic Part 3. So he produced the Plandemic Part 1 and 2, which came out during the heat of COVID, when we were right in the middle of the psyop. I remember reposting his Plandemic 2 on Twitter. This was like fall 2020. And I was filming in Mount Shasta. So I sort of posted it on my drive up, and then got into filming mode and didn't check Twitter for like a week. And I was getting calls from friends saying, "Reuben, are you okay? What's going on?" And I was like, "Well, I don't know. I'm fine. Yeah. What's going on?" They're like, "Well, we're seeing all over Twitter and all over the internet, people are they're threatening to kill you and for your post." And I'm like, "What?"
Whoa.
And I went back and I looked, and under my post for Plandemic Part 2, there was about 1,000 comments and so many angry people that wanted to kill me for spreading disinformation. And now we know everything in that documentary has been absolutely fact checked and verified.
Yeah,
and it was just at the time. Yeah, the WHO, the agendas at play, the NIH and the Wuhan lab, and all of that stuff that we now know is true. At that time, there was a major censorship campaign and an indoctrination. I think actually that was Plandemic 2 Indoctrination. I think that was the title. We had the mass formation psychosis that was going across humanity at that time. So anyways, definitely go check out all of those movies. Mickey Willis is a hero for putting those together and for standing up for truth. And he was under fire big time by many different groups and even friends that he had lost and within the community, documentary community, and the truth community. So many people were duped during that time around the vax issue, and not just the vax but COVID itself. Alternative medicines like ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, these are now proven cures for this giant psyop that humanity just went through. So again, on that point, we just went through a giant psyop, folks. Our government has lied to us over and over and over again. Our government is forcing a biological bioweapon into every human being, including children on this planet. Particularly in the US, they were threatening, depending on what state you lived in, threatening to lay you off of work, and in fact did. In fact, many military people who did not adhere to getting the jab were discharged from their service. Many firemen, many government workers, many first line defenders when it came to nurses and doctors. So we have a proven psyop on humanity that the government and the Department of Defense actually issued through Pfizer the illegal jabs, because based on the Constitution that should have never happened in the first place. But through these emergency authorizations and emergency powers, they were able to slip it in and sneak it in. And that's unfortunately where all this UFO talk leads, is the setup for another type of COVID event. Instead of using COVID as the catalyst, the idea is to use ETs as the catalyst to force emergency powers to then destroy the Constitution and then create a totalitarian government regime, much, much worse than anything you've seen coming out of China. That is the goal. That will not happen because America is waking up. The American humanity as a whole are waking up to the shenanigans of the deep state and the military-industrial complex, and many of these we'll call them continuity of government. These bad actors, and I'm not saying everybody in government's bad. On the contrary, it's a very small group of people that have captured and commandeered the largest agencies within our government, DOD, DOJ, Supreme Court, something's happening there. We may have gotten that back, but for a long time that was captured. FBI, CIA, all the three letters, FDA, EPA, they've all been captured by special interest groups that do not have the best interest of humanity at large. So there's so we're and this has been a slow takeover until finally, I guess they figured they had enough agencies captured and enough of their people installed into these key positions. So when the COVID psyop began, they were able to execute it pretty well, even though Trump was in office, and Trump himself also probably not privy to all the different layers of the swamp and the deep state, even though he made it, his initial campaign was about draining the swamp. Unfortunately, he got very caught up in the swamp, and and the whole COVID psyop definitely, if he was not initially privy to it, he definitely helped move that along through his emergency authorizations and different policies and things put through. So anyways, it's sort of it's all connected to the UFO subject because of this hunger for power. And when you're dealing with off-world technologies that are, thousands of years, if not millions of years more advanced than what we have here, of course, you're going to want to get that to have the edge on, rivaling not just countries, but just rivaling anything. If you're like I said, a military contractor, or you're developing specific types of weapons or technologies, you're going to want the latest, greatest, most advanced access to the best stuff. And that's what's been going on for a long time. And there's so many different groups. And I think what we're seeing is there's one group that's been keeping it secret. There's another group that want access to the secret so they can get the edge on the other, on humanity. And then you have another group that are kind of keeping it secret, but they kind of want the truth out. And they don't know what, they want humanity to prosper, but they also don't want, humanity to go nuts and start, riots in the streets because they've been lied to. So how do you figure? It's a very complicated subject. And especially when you're dealing with this idea and concept that we're not alone in the universe or on this planet, and you look at different belief structures around the world and different religions, and that's a big wrench in a lot of them. So again, not an easy subject. Lots of different twists and turns we could go on, and I'm happy to go on any of them. I think I've researched most of them.
Cool. I guess we'll kind of go back to what we watched and your thoughts on why that bird was like frozen.
Okay.
In the air. If you have any ideas on that.
Sorry, there's so many tangents. It's so easy to get distracted. And
hey, I'm just here to listen. So I'm here to listen and absorb.
Well, so all of this is leading to a bigger evolution of humanity, evolution of consciousness in humanity. And one of the big paradigm shifts is knowing that we're not alone in the universe. So that's for sure. Whatever package you put on, or whatever spin you put on the UFO disclosure package, the big takeaway is we're not alone. And just that alone, just that concept and that idea alone, is a major paradigm shift in the human psyche. How we think, how we act, how we do things. So so as that is a byproduct of what we're dealing with now, but many people, it's sort of like what comes first, the chicken before the egg. Many people will adopt that idea, and then their minds will be expanded, their hearts will be more open because they're seeing the world through this different lens, and they start to make decisions and do things in a different way. Others will already have open hearts and minds, and simply adopt that as, of course, that's a matter of fact because we're already seeing the world through this lens. Of course, there's multidimensional realities, there's different entities that exist in this wide spectrum, and no brainer. So through this shift in consciousness comes a shift in our physical reality, because our physical reality is based on our perception of our beliefs, our emotions, and our thoughts. That Trinity creates through, we have, the observer effect. We have the many experiments have shown that our the way we perceive reality has a direct physical correlation with what reality, how it shows up for us. So and there's lots of experiments that do that. So your belief structure, being Christian, for example, would, if you were to have sort of an experience through an extra dimensional being, it might show up in the form of an angel. It might show up in the form of Mother Mary or Jesus in a light being, a light form, or something like that, because that's the belief structure we're sort of that you may be accustomed to. For me, I had a mantis being show up, a insectoid mantis being that to me felt very angelic. And I actually asked it, I was like, you do you guys work with angels much? And they're like, all the time, so we aren't exactly angels. We interact and go through those realms, but it is a different energy, but very, very similar in how it in how it manifests. I have interacted with angels as well, archangels, Metatron, Michael, and others. So I kind of know what those frequencies and those energies feel like. But yeah, it's based on belief structure, and I'm sure as my beliefs evolve too, that mantis being may turn into something else. Who knows? But the idea and the concept of our beliefs, our emotions, and our thoughts formulating this reality. So as collective humanity shifts their perception or their what is possible, what is real, then our physical reality starts to twist and turn, and there's a collective consciousness where each of us individually, based on our belief systems, come together and we form this sort of its own entity in a sense. So as that collective consciousness expands and forms its God brain, if you want to call it that, then our physical reality is going to go through major transformations. And what we thought was possible or impossible, 5 years ago, will now become sort of possible or even the new norm. And it's a phase shift between dimensions, because as our consciousness and as we start operating from our hearts even more, then the actual physics of our dimension start to break apart in the old sense. And we're going to discuss, and this is where new discoveries like free energy will sort, and they've been around for a long time, but they'll start to make themselves more prominent in our mainstream reality, because our belief systems around what is possible will start to shift, and then these technologies will become more available to humanity. So it's going to, basically, we're entering into the Twilight Zone. Collective humanity is going to get a bit nutty, even more. I know it's been nutty already the past 3 years, but it's going to be even nuttier, both positive and negative. The spectrum is not limited to just a positive spectrum. When we expand our consciousness, we go both ways. It's a sphere of energy that goes around in all directions. So though we may be aware of darker things like, the Vatican doing satanic ritual, child trafficking and all that stuff, right? And we're becoming aware that that stuff is a reality. It's been a reality for thousands of years. These dark cults have been doing this stuff behind the scenes for a long, long time. We're just now becoming aware of it because our expansion of our awareness doesn't mean we have to go into those realms. We can be aware of it, and we can consciously choose to not be around that stuff or to eradicate it. Some people's, many ex-servicemen and military people have made it their life's mission to go after these human traffickers and to expose them. And there's a lot of great work. There's new documentaries that are coming out. There's a lot of great work by some people, and I know some of these people personally. So it's awesome. It's awesome that that's happening. It's awesome that humanity is becoming aware of it, because if we're not aware of it, how do we fix it? And that's part of the UFO problem. We have to become aware of it before we can even, what do we do with it? And there's all kinds of assumptions that, the phenomenon is this or the phenomenon is that. Well, let's just put an awareness around it first. Let's admit that the phenomenon is real. Let's not demonize it right away, because there's a spectrum to the phenomenon. There's dark and light, and let's not put it all in the dark category, because that would be a disservice. Let's not put it all in the light category, because that would be a disservice as well. There's a spectrum to this phenomenon, and we should look at it through that lens. There's a spectrum. Let's take it case by case. In this case, okay, that was a dark agenda. That stuff happened. Some people got hurt. That's not cool. All right. Over here, wow, we've had ETs visiting us for thousands of years that have been trying to shift humanity into a positive direction for a long, long time. So that to ignore that would be terrible as well. So it's complex. We're just in the infancy of this, of sort of admitting that it's real, and then where do we go from here? And we're just in the very, very beginning stages of this. So guys like David Grusch are actually doing a service right now for humanity. But I just say, be aware of the agendas and the timing and the different groups that are pushing certain people forward, because there's agendas behind everything, good and bad agendas, I guess, light and dark. Yeah. And awareness and understanding and compassion, even for those human traffickers. Compassion for why are they doing this? What in their belief system is creating such a disturbing view of the world? Why would anybody in their they're not in their right mind, clearly, but why would they do such a thing to another human being? What is that programming? And if the more we can understand that, then the more we can deal with the problem. For one, it must be admitted. 2, it must be stopped. And then 3, okay, what do we do with these people? Because there's a lot of people that are, especially in our, in these captured government agency positions. And that's one of the reasons they're there, is because they have been compromised. The whole Epstein story is quite real. And the grooming of politicians and famous people to go along with the dark cult is absolutely real and should be acknowledged and investigated.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
I know we were supposed to talk about UFOs. I know we went.
No, that's all right.
It's better to understand all of these different components,
that's great,
because it's all interconnected to this UFO subject that we're just starting, yourself and your audience is just starting to step into.
Well, wow, that was amazing. I love it. I love hearing that stuff. So, okay. But we are actually at the 1 hour mark. Yeah. So, Reuben, would you like to plug anything before we sign off for today?
Yeah. So if these types of talks excite you, I do this every week over on I have a membership portal. It's go to interviewwithed.org. /membership, or just go to Interview with Ed and you'll see the membership there. And I do interviews with people who channel beings, extra dimensional beings, experiencers. I do another talk every Friday. I call it Langdon's Lowdown, where I look at different news subjects like the current one in Greer, and I sort of break down sort of my worldview of these things and how they work. And it's a lot of fun. We have a good community over there, and it's continuing to grow. So, and I just launched a new podcast, which is on Spotify. It's Interview with Ed, the podcast, on Spotify and iTunes, and hopefully Amazon soon.
Cool. Yeah. All of your information should be in the description below. Reuben, thanks again for coming on the show. You're a wealth of knowledge when it comes to that stuff. So yeah, I just love.
Well, you got some homework to do.
I do have some homework. Apparently, I have a lot of homework.
I gave you some nuggets, and anytime you as you get more understanding and want to know more, different views on stuff, want to go down some more rabbit holes anytime, I'm ready to go.
Awesome. Well, like always, guys, if you enjoyed the show, we're on YouTube and Rumble. Hit the like, smash the subscribe, and ring the bell to get notified when we go live. And we're also, like I said, on Rumble as well. And again, Reuben, all of his information is in the description below. Check him out. He's awesome. Also support his work in whatever current avenues you're currently doing, whether that's video game wise or whatnot. Man, first the whole Ken fiasco, and then you tell me that people are like wanting to kill you because of that's crazy.
It's because I speak my truth, and a lot of people aren't used to that. So and people like to follow whatever is being shoved down their throats at the time, and I not like that. I go by facts. I go by research, and it's unfortunate that humanity has gone down such a dark path, but we are now coming out. The pendulum is now swinging the other direction, and people are waking up. So I'm excited.
Well, thank you for standing up and speaking the truth, Reuben, that you can and that you found out. So thanks again, you guys. So you guys have a good rest of your night. God bless. And I'll catch you guys on the flip side. Thanks again, Reuben.
All right. Thank you.